Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take all that complex source material you send us, articles, research, expert notes, and give you that strategic advantage of being instantly well-informed.
And you sent us a really fascinating stack this time.
We did. It's all about that razor-thin line between, accidental internet fame and these just spectacular public blunders.
That's right. And our mission today is to do a really deep analysis of these viral moments. We want to move beyond just saying, oh, it was chance or it was happenstance.
Getting to the mechanics of it.
Exactly. This dive is all about extracting the core mechanisms. What is it precisely that makes something spread like wildfire? The key insight we're pulling out is that going viral. It's less about pure luck and more of a predictable result.
Predictable, that's a strong word.
It is, but it's a consequence of psychological, physical, and social factors that can actually, believe it or not, be modeled.
Okay, I really appreciate that focus on modeling, because when we talk about going viral, it can sound almost, metalogical. So let's make sure we're using the term precisely.
Right. So we define virality as the rapid exponential spread of content. It really mimics a biological virus jumping quickly from person to person.
And this isn't a new phenomenon, is it?
Not at all. The phenomenon is actually pretty old. It started back in the early 1990s with digital files. Think of those early GIF files or email forwards.
Like the dancing baby.
The dancing baby, exactly. Or even the first animation from Trey Parker and Matt Stone, The Spirit of Christmas. They were primitive precursors to what we see today.
So if the mechanism itself is old, the acceleration today must be just staggering with all the platforms we have.
It's exponential. Platforms like TikTok, YouTube, X, they provide this high-speed infrastructure for almost instantaneous global spread. But here's where we move past the chaos. Your sources point to research suggesting the spread isn't random at all.
So tell me about this prediction model. That's a really powerful claim to predict a viral hit.
It is. The sources talk about a system called the Branded Viral Movie Predictor. It's a framework that forecasts the likelihood of success based on four specific quantifiable factors.
Factors.
And if you can align those four, you dramatically increase your chances of capturing that digital zeitgeist.
Okay, let's break those down right now because that sounds like the secret sauce.
So first you have congruence.
Congruence.
Yeah, that means the content itself has to align perfectly with the platform and the context. Like a super polished professional ad might just fall flat on TikTok because it's not congruent with that raw, quick cut feel.
Right, it doesn't fit the vibe. Okay, what's second?
Second is emotional strength. This is all about the intensity of the feeling the content provokes, whether that's positive or negative.
Strong emotion is fuel. That feels intuitive. What are the last two?
Third is network involvement. This refers to how easily the content can be shared by influential people. A celebrity, a big news outlet, or even a highly followed niche account. That initial boost is critical.
Okay, and the last one?
And finally, the most modern element, meme synergy.
Meme synergy. Okay, that sounds a little bit like jargon. How does that translate into practical terms for someone, making a video?
It just means the content has to be easily remixable. Can you reuse it? Can you adapt it into a template? If users can quickly grab the sound or the dance or the visual and put their own spin on it,
it becomes a foundation.
Exactly. The synergy drives the spread. It's not just one video, it's a foundation for millions of little iterations. And that's the framework we're going to be testing today.
All right, let's unpack this and jump right into the emotional engine room, the psychology of sharing. Because if the goal is rapid spread, we have to understand what makes you, the person watching, actually hit that share button.
Psychology is, it's the absolute foundation. We can look at Jonah Berger's work, which really highlights that strong emotional arousal is the central driver.
And not just good emotions.
No, not just happiness. It's any high-energy emotion. Intense joy, profound surprise, even, consuming anger. These feelings crank up our physiological arousal, and that makes the content contagious. Low arousal emotions like, say, sadness or contentment, they tend to stop sharing in its tracks.
That focus on strong arousal makes a lot of sense, but your sources also point out there's a bias in the type of emotion that really dominates online.
Precisely. While anger can definitely spread, there's a very distinct, powerful emotional bias toward the positive.
So happy stuff gets shared more.
Overwhelmingly, studies confirm that funny, uplifting, or intensely cute videos, adorable animals, a moment of unexpected triumph, they're shared far more often than content that triggers deep sadness or fear.
Why is that?
Well, we share these positive feelings because we want to improve the emotional landscape of our own social circles. Sharing good news it feels good to the person sharing it.
So when I send my friend a video of a capybara wearing a tiny hat, I'm basically giving them and myself a little chemical boost.
You are. You absolutely are. And that's where the dopamine connection becomes scientific fact, not just an anecdote.
Okay.
There was a study from Elon University, and they analyzed the top viral videos, and they found that these common traits, humor, surprise, irony, were present in almost every single one. They don't just entertain, they literally stimulate the brain's reward circuitry.
So how did that chemical reaction encourage sharing specifically?
Well, when you see something truly surprising or funny, your brain flags it as important as valuable information, and that triggers a release of dopamine,
The pleasure chemical.
right? In the pleasure and reward centers. That neurological hit creates a compulsion not just to watch it again, but crucially, to pass on that discovery to your network. Sharing is reinforced because you get rewarded with likes, with engagement. You're chemically wired to keep it going.
This leads us directly to something your sources highlight as a massive psychological trigger: expectation violation. The classic case being Susan Boyle.
Oh, Susan Boyle's audition on Britain's Got Talent is a perfect textbook example of using contrast. The audience, based on her quiet, unassuming appearance, they set a very specific expectation.
A low one, let's be honest.
A very low one. And when she opened her mouth and delivered this voice of immense power and beauty, that sudden, overwhelming contrast created a kind of cognitive shock.
That moment of shock is the viral fuel, isn't it?
Absolutely. The brain is hardwired to notice and process things that deviate from the norm. When a pattern is so dramatically broken, it demands instant attention. That collective surprise, the look on the judges' faces, that was the emotional peak that forced sharing across platforms.
Perfect storm.
A perfect storm of surprise, joy, and emotional strength. It hit every criterion in that predictive framework.
That pattern-breaking power is just undeniable. Okay, let's pivot to some specific triumphs where these factors, especially congruence and that meme synergy, created, global phenomena. We have to talk about the king of virality, Psy, and Gangnam Style.
Gangnam Style, 2012. It was a global viral success and eventually became the very first YouTube video to hit 1 billion views. It aligned with that predictor model almost perfectly.
How so?
Well, the content had extremely high emotional strength. It was absurd, it was joyful, it was undeniably catchy. But the key, really, was its high meme synergy. The dance moves.
The horse dance.
The horse dance, yeah. It was goofy enough to be memorable, but simple enough that anyone, anywhere could imitate it and remix it. It became a cultural template. The humor was ironic and relatable, even with the language barrier. It just hit that sweet spot.
And yet, even with all those boxes checked, Psy himself said he never saw that level of success coming. It makes me wonder if emphasizing the predictor underplays the genuine, chaotic element of luck.
That's a fair point, and it's something we have to address later. But let's look at that third factor, network involvement. A lot of Psy's early success was catapulted by shares from huge celebrities and media outlets.
So the content needs a push.
It proves that even a powerful piece of content needs that distribution to accelerate. Luck may have opened the door, but the strategy and the content's inherent shareability, they did the heavy lifting.
And we see that same principle even in much simpler content, like the ultimate dog tease video.
Over 170 million views.
It's just pure positive humor, and it's highly relatable. No complicated dance moves needed. But what about the ultimate paradox, success that comes through failure?
That brings us to Blendtech's Will It Blend series, a fascinating case study in commercial virality, specifically the video where they blended an iPhone.
Which, from the phone's perspective, was a total failure.
A complete product failure. The phone was destroyed. And yet, the video was a spectacular commercial victory for the company selling the industrial blenders.
Why did watching an expensive piece of tech get pulverized generate such a positive outcome for Blendtech?
It was novelty and a demonstration of power. The unexpected destruction, the sheer force it takes to turn an iPhone into dust, was a visually stunning, high-arousal event. The audience didn't care about the iPhone, they were just captivated by the blender's power.
So it turned a boring product into something exciting.
Exactly. It transformed a dull commercial product into an object of fascination through destructive surprise. It turned a perceived failure into a marketing triumph.
That pivot from failure to fame is so complex, and it brings us neatly to the mechanics of failure itself. Let's shift our lens completely. Let's talk about the cold, hard physics of what goes wrong in so many of those famous fail videos you sent over.
Right. When we really dissect those fail compilations, a parkour jump or some backyard stunt, we move out of psychology and into Newtonian mechanics. Physics is so often the silent culprit.
It's not just they tripped.
It's never just they tripped. It's about miscalculated vectors, not enough kinetic energy, or a tiny shift in the center of mass.
Can you give us some more technical examples?
Sure. Take a simple jump across a gap. Success or catastrophic failure hinges on the tiny details. The exact angle of the jump, the force you apply, maintaining your body's center of mass over the pivot point.
Tiny details.
Physical experiments show that even a single-degree difference in your launch angle, or a fraction of a centimeter where your foot lands because of friction, that can determine whether you stick the landing or, well, plummet. The laws of motion are just brutally unforgiving.
So the most spectacular fail videos are basically just a perfect demonstration of a physical principle being violated. But that brings us to the psychology of why we enjoy watching these physical disasters.
That's where we introduce the concept of schadenfreude.
The pleasure from others' misfortune.
Right. Our sources confirm this is a major driver for sharing fail videos, but there's a really critical caveat here. The pleasure is strongest when the failure happens without serious, lasting harm. We want the comedy of the fall, not the moral burden of a severe injury.
We want the lesson without the life-changing trauma.
Precisely. And this is where the psychology gets really nuanced. People are drawn to watching failures because they often unconsciously identify with the vulnerable position of the person attempting the stunt. This creates empathy. You understand the risk, but there are no personal consequences for you. You get the thrill from a safe distance.
So sharing those videos is more than just being cruel. It's a kind of collective learning.
It is. It's textbook vicarious reinforcement.
Vicarious reinforcement.
It's just learning behavior by watching the rewards or punishments others get. When you see someone fail spectacularly because they misjudged their speed, you are mentally reinforcing the lesson that speed requires calculation. Sharing the video distributes that learned lesson across your social network.
That's a great way to put it. But while vicarious reinforcement is about learning, virality isn't always benign. Let's explore the darker side, the infamy of failure, which can carry a massive personal toll. And one of the earliest examples of this was the Star Wars kid.
The Star Wars kid incident, and this was way back in 2003, it's still just a tragic cautionary tale. A Canadian student, he just recorded himself pretending to sword fight with a stick.
Innocently enough.
Totally. And he found himself the subject of global mockery and cyberbullying. That video, which had no malice in it, became this instrument of extreme personal distress. It highlights how even innocuous content can destroy lives when you couple it with the network's capacity for cruelty.
And the sources show that even today, that mental pressure is intense. We're seeing direct reports from users on X who've had that sudden, unexpected fame.
The feedback is stark. Viraj Sheth, for instance, describes sudden virality as mentally exhausting. It's not just the attention, it's the sudden loss of control, your life, your narrative. It's all instantly managed by algorithms and media platforms.
Taking away your privacy and your mental space.
Completely. And when the virality is centered on a failure or a controversy, the support network often just collapses.
Right, that was another user's point.
Yeah, that was Cassie Clark's experience. She pointed out that instead of support, people who go viral for the first time often face immediate accusations, hostility, the sheer volume of negativity with that instant global reach. It can be psychologically crippling. That network involvement factor that usually helps success suddenly becomes a destructive force.
And behind all this science and sociology, we still have that factor we mentioned earlier, luck. You cited a study suggesting 10% of videos go viral for no clear reason. I still struggle to reconcile that with a robust viral predictor. Is it really just 10% pure chance?
It's important to clarify what that 10% means. It means that traditional content analysis often fails to identify the specific emotional hook. It's the inexplicable part. The creator didn't intend it, the structure wasn't perfect, but the timing, the momentary mood of the internet, and that initial random distribution, it all just aligned perfectly.
So we're talking about Charlie Bit My Finger here.
The quintessential example. An unplanned, endearing moment between two brothers. The core content was strong, high positive emotional strength. But its initial lift was sheer luck. Then its success was amplified rapidly when key influencers and media sites started sharing it.
So luck opened the door.
But the distribution infrastructure threw it wide open and kept it that way.
And that distribution infrastructure is the final piece of the puzzle. Algorithms and social cues. They don't care about quality, they care about engagement.
Absolutely. The algorithms on TikTok, YouTube, they are engineered to prioritize emotional arousal and engagement. Content that keeps you hooked, whether it's through humor or controversy, gets weighted heavier. But the algorithms also rely heavily on social validation.
The human factor amplified by the machine.
Exactly. We're wired to conform. There was a social experiment that showed this clearly. Participants were way more likely to watch a video when they saw social cues that others had watched it, like a high download count. Our desire to be in the know compels us to click, which validates the content and feeds the algorithm even more.
So if we synthesize this entire deep dive, from the dopamine hit to the laws of physics and the ultimate push from algorithms, it's clear virality is an intensely complex system, not some cosmic accident.
It's a deep story. It combines all these synchronized elements. A measurable psychology that demands strong emotions, a set of physical laws that govern spectacular failures, a small but real factor of luck, and finally these robust distribution networks that push content based on engagement.
So the blend tech success and the Star Wars kid tragedy are two sides of the same algorithmic coin.
They really are. Failures teach us lessons through vicarious reinforcement, and successes give us that dopamine-fueled inspiration. The central lesson here is that going viral, for fame or infamy, it all hinges on these precise pivot points and seemingly minor details.
The precise angle of a jump, the unexpected contrast in a voice.
Or just the moment an algorithm decides to show it to the world.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening? Given that the viewing audience actively participates in spreading content motivated by these deep-seated things like schadenfreude or the need to learn from others, we have to ask ourselves, if small details really do make the difference between fame and infamy, what role does our individual decision to click, to watch, and to share play in shaping the deep and often painful story behind every viral video? That is something worth mulling over long after this deep dive concludes.